want to continue with these Photoshop lessons for your iSilhouette portrait. What were we looking at yesterday? Can anybody tell me?
We were putting the green around the darker areas so that it's easier to select the picture.
Right. We established yesterday that this green chroma key background works really nicely for most of your photos, but quite a number of you are going to have problems with that green background when you get to areas like the bottom of this photo where we've got the person standing on the floor and we don't have that clean separation. So in terms of getting that green highlight all the way around, I can actually speed up my editing a little bit with an image like this. I could just crop this image slightly. We don't have to give it a severe crop. We're going to be doing that a bit more later on too. Let me just adjust the zoom on the screen here. But we can give it a little bit of a crop. Fewer pixels mean the computer doesn't have to work quite as hard when it's editing the image. So a quick crop here is not going to affect my end quality. It's just going to speed things up. So I'm going to crop, but I want to make sure I don't cut any part of the image off. Okay. So I defined the crop borders there, and I see this dark gray shaded. Okay, this gray shaded area is what's going to be cropped out now. If I want to, I can adjust the size and the position of the crop. I can even rotate the image here if I didn't think it was quite level. And when I'm ready to accept that change, I can either hit the plus sign here or tap the Enter key on the keyboard. And those pixels have been thrown away. We can't get them back. So cropping is a destructive edit. You don't want to do that unless you're certain. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So there's the zoom tool, and I can zoom down toward the bottom of this image. And I can see in here, again, with the feet where I'm going to have some issues. So suggestion yesterday was pick up the paintbrush tool, which is the letter B in the keyboard. I can hold down the Option key to pick up a different paintbrush, and here I am painting now. If I run into a problem like this, where I kind of take a bit of a bite away from the leg, not a bad idea to keep your finger near the X key on the keyboard. X will let you switch. If you take a look at these two color chips here, right now green is in the foreground, black is in the back. Same here. If I hit the letter X, you'll notice it swaps the foreground and background color. So now I can very quickly switch to black to paint black again, and X key again to go back to painting green. Does anybody remember what? So now you can see that I've got that green background. Now I've got a couple of knockout spots here too. By knockout I mean there are a couple spots here where I should take out the middle. And that's easy enough to do too. Again, just pick up the green here. I've still got it in my paintbrush, B for brush. I can hold down the shift key here. Now there I went over, hit the X. Back to green. Doesn't matter if it's not exactly perfect because no one is ever going to know exactly what the shape of the legs was like in there. It's even a tiny little spot in there, but I think in favor, oops, I'm just going to actually paint that in black. So these PC keyboard keys are a little different. Okay. All right, now this image has got some challenge with it in terms of peeling it off the background because I've got a reasonably clear silhouette, but here I'm actually, the subject was a little too close to the background. I'm starting to see a fair bit of, yeah. I'm seeing a little too much highlight detail in here. So it might not be a bad idea to adjust the contrast on this image a little bit before I try and separate it off the background. If I could try and make the blacks blacker, I think that would help. So for the time being, I'm going to get rid of this image adjustment layer that we had earlier. I can do that and I'll move this up a bit so you can see it. On the layers palette here, I can drag a layer into the trash can here, just to get rid of that layer. Let's see if there's another adjustment we can make where we can try and make those highlights just a little bit darker so that we make our lives a bit easier here. And to do that, I'm going to try a levels adjustment. Levels adjustments here. Not going to go into histograms in any great detail in this course. You could take another one of our courses to figure it out. But this is a histogram here, and it's basically a map, okay, or graph of the number of pixels of a particular color value in the image. It doesn't tell us what color they are. It doesn't tell us where the pixels are located. It just tells us how many dark, how many light, how many medium pixels there are. So this big spike in the bottom of the histogram here, that tells me that there are a lot of dark or near dark black tones. That would be all of this dark black in here. This is the middle of the histogram. It tells me if there are gray tones, and there isn't a lot of gray. It looks to me like there's a whole lot of black, and then there are a whole lot of lighter values, which would be these lighter green. What I can do here is just start to drag these little sliders around. When I'm dragging these sliders around, I'm telling Photoshop, make the pixels that are above this slider, make them black. So if I keep dragging this to the right, the picture gets blacker and blacker and blacker and blacker. I haven't actually changed those pixel values. It's just showing us a bit of a preview here right now. If I take this way too far, he goes pretty much black entirely. That's where I'm basically saying make anything that was white, make it black. Okay. Conversely, I could do this the opposite way and start to make everything whiter, 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 whiter. And it just disappears that way. But all I really want to do here is drag this slider up so that I see and get rid of a lot of those highlight tones. Right? You can even play with this mid-tone one here sometimes, can help too. Okay, that helped. This area here near his arm that's still got is a little bit problematic in here. I think I'm going to come in and zoom in and just add a little bit of black into this area right here on his arm, because that's going to cause some problems if I leave it. Okay, so easy enough. I'll just pick up the paintbrush tool. I've already got black picked. I'm just coming in here and highlighting. Okay. As much as possible, we want to get a nice clean edge. So I'm just having a quick kind of scan over the entire image here to see, are there any other spots that I want to fix up. I think we're pretty good. Okay. The adjustment layer that I have on here, this one for the levels that we did to hyper accentuate the contrast, I want to flatten this all together. I don't want to keep two separate layers anymore. What I want to do is collapse this down. Okay, it's going to simplify things for this next step. So I'm going to pull a little menu here out of the layers palette and flatten the image. And how to peel my image up off the background. This part's pretty straightforward. Because the black is in a continuous area here, meaning if I were to select one part of this black, all of the other parts of black would be touching it, I can use one of the simplest selection tools that we've got in Photoshop called a magic wand. Okay, magic wand's been here since Photoshop 1. It's like one of the first tools they came out with. And the wand works like this. You basically click on part of the picture, and Photoshop will do its best to find all of the other colors that are similar and touching that color. Does that make sense? It has to be and a continuous area. So if I clicked, for instance, I'm going to hit the Command D will deselect. If I hit the black down here, it only selects the black and the black areas that are touching where I clicked on the floor, but it didn't pick up inside the body. This is why it was essential to have that outline of green all the way around your image. I could try this in reverse. If I click the color green here, you'll notice it selects most of the green, but it missed these outside bits. That's because they're not quite as green as the area I clicked. If I adjust the tolerance of the wand here and I crank this up to say 85 and click the green, now it will pick it because I've lowered the, or pardon me, increased the tolerance. But I should be able to leave this just set back at its default, which is what I had. And if I just click on the dark area of the silhouette in the middle. Okay. All right. How do I get this now onto a background that I can move around? Check the assignment handout. Okay, inside of our projects for the silhouette. Here's the actual assignment, and the assignment mentions on here that your picture is supposed to be 13 by 19 inches at 300 dpi. So I'm giving you both the physical outside dimensions and the number of pixels per inch that there should be. So in Photoshop, I'm not going to resize this document. What I am going to do though, I'm going to make a new document. And the new document is going to be the size that I specified in the assignment, which is 13 inches by a height of 19 inches at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. Okay. I can even give it a background color to start with. I'm going to just leave it as white for now. And I just peeled the two documents apart there. It is possible in CS4 to have documents nested together in the same window, but I'm going to peel them apart. And I'm going to set my layers, my workspace, back to my essentials. And now, like you were suggesting, we could do a straight copy and paste. What I'm going to do here actually is copy it first. And then I'm going to switch over to our new document here and paste it. So now I've got the silhouette sitting out here on its own. Okay. I would probably save this document because I spent a lot of time making changes around the outside edges there. I'm going to deselect the magic wand, so I can come under select and ask to deselect. And not a bad idea to save that picture before I close it. Okay. So now I've got my silhouette sitting in the middle of the background. If I pick up the Move tool here on the toolbar, I can actually pick up my silhouette and I can move it and reposition it. And because it's essentially kind of a line art drawing, it's just a simple silhouetted outline, I may want to even increase the size of it a bit. Now generally in Photoshop, you don't want to increase the size of objects, okay, because you're trying to add pixels. But for an object like this that doesn't have a lot of fine detail to it really, I can try scaling it. Now when I scale it, I've got the Move tool selected here. And the Move tool is showing transformation controls, that these little X's or boxes on screen. If I don't see those, I could have come under Edit and asked for Free Transform, and these would show up. But with these little control points, I can start pulling and stretching the image. But that's probably not a good idea to start doing this, because I'm distorting the perspective of the image and the proportions. So when you're going to scale it, hold the Shift key down and scale from one of the corners with the Shift key down. Now as I start to drag, it adjusts both the height and width at the same time. I need to leave some room for type in this image as well, so I think I'll probably keep it sized around there for now. And if I'm happy with that change, I need to hit the checkbox. And then have a good close look at the image and make sure that you've got a nice clean outline to it. Okay, this one looks pretty good. Areas around hair tend to be problematic sometimes, so you'll want to check in there. It might be the case that you need to come in. Here I can see some chunks missing. See how it's getting pretty ragged and chunky there? That might not be a bad time to get the paintbrush out and just fill in and touch up a few of these sections. What's important to know now is that this isn't just the silhouette sitting on a white page. This white page, or the white background, can be changed. I could turn it off, so that checkerboard pattern means no background. Or I could come in here and pick a totally different color now. So under the Edit menu, I can choose to fill this background layer with another color. Okay. I could also use any tool that I wanted to adjust the color of the background. A moment ago we had an adjustment layer for hue brightness. I'm going to pick another adjustment layer for hue and saturation. This will allow me to change the color of this background completely at will. We can also have gradient fills. Gradient means a gradation from one color to another. Okay. And there is a gradient tool right here in the palette. So the gradient right now is going to move from dark blue to black. I can click on here and change any of these colors. Okay. I can either change from a preset, or I could have color swatches, and I can drag these swatches onto my colors. Maybe for now I'll try that. I can have different pattern gradients, whether radial gradient from the middle out or a reflected gradient. Maybe I'll try a radial gradient. I dragged a little too far. I've got the gradient tool. Watch this again. I click and drag, I get this line. That indicates the direction and the length of the gradient. Okay, see that? If I do short line, quick gradient. If I do longer line, longer gradient. So you want to go back and look at some of those iPod ads again and look at what kind of backgrounds they had going. Okay. Some of them toward the end of the campaign got quite detailed. Okay, and you may want to look up some tutorials online about how to come up with some more abstract backgrounds, or head into the filters and see if you can find something there. Okay? Final thing here. When you get your image to this stage where you've got a silhouette floating on the background, make sure that you start saving your document as a Photoshop file. Save as Photoshop. Okay? If you try and save a JPEG image with those different layers going, the adjustment layer, the silhouette layer, the background layer, JPEG images are flat. They only have one layer. Only the Photoshop files can have a multiple layers. So the Photoshop PSD document is going to be your working file format.